I wonder sometimes the Donald Rumsfelds of the Washington power elite look at themselves in the mirror and say, I never should have been allowed to be a member of this power elite, because nobody should be a member of a power elite, much less myself. And so because I know what my limitations are, and I know what the limitations of other members of the educated professional class are in the United States, I think there's a great potential for abuse of power by a small coterie of insiders who are career government officials and corporate executives to be in possession of the history of the future. I don't see them using it to eliminate warfare. I see them using it to engage in warfare, to determine what wars need to be waged. And what we've seen since the end of World War II, which was supposed to create a regime of peace and of international human rights protection that was going to end warfare and end totalitarian governments waging war on innocent populations, is one war after another in which innocent people are being slaughtered. I believe that warfare is being used in contemporary life to depopulate the planet, and that the thrust has been on wars of aggression that take advantage of innocent populations that power elites believe should be genocided. I think that's what the true history of post-war warfare shows, in whatever country it's been waged. Many of the wars have been propagated into existence through propaganda and the creation of artificial opposition between tribal factions like the Hutus and the Tutsis and the Rwandan genocide. And because I'm convinced that quantum access is being used to determine what wars to wage, I think the emphasis is off. The emphasis should be on using quantum access, for example, to expedite technology transfer from the future to the present, so that we create a better future right around ourselves, that we take information from a successful future and use it to engineer a sustainable present. And there has been very little work in that area. Because these time travel technologies were essentially sequestered by the War Department at the time of Tesla's death and forwarded to Los Alamos, they remain weaponized. And as long as quantum access remains weaponized, we're going to be living in a world that is being weaponized.
That'll change. I think that they've split off into various different probabilities of a weaponized kind of a warfare-based reality has been split out there, and I think now it's kind of looping back into our timeline where we have to deal with all these different fragmented aspects of ourselves and heal them and transcend them.
Right. And I think that's occurring too, and I think that's why I'm getting such a positive response when I lecture and I meet people personally. Like that recent event up at James Gilliland's Sanctuary in Trout Lake, Washington. It was really a peak experience for me, because for 3 days people were coming over and talking to me and asking great questions and thanking me and everything and for my work, and I really got positive feedback, and I'm convinced that people are hungry for positive change, and they know they've been lied to by the U.S. government, and they just want the U.S. government to come clean and tell them what they've developed. And I think they know intuitively that I'm telling the truth, because they knew things like time travel had already been developed. And they knew that people had already been on Mars, for example.
I mean, I remember people who were listening to you who were total skeptics at first. You totally turned them around. And you were speaking for so long, you lost your voice. I
do lose my voice occasionally. I'm pretty vociferous. But yeah, I lost my voice there up at James's place. But it was such a great experience. So people were coming over and they were asking me great questions, and you were interviewing me on your camera phone, on your camera, and I realized that we're all on the internet now, because even somebody can film you on their camera, on their digital camera, and then download the interview on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
So we're all living now in a common culture, an electronic village, where the messages that we send out have to be the critical, life-sustaining ones, because those are the messages we're spreading around and with everybody, and sharing with the whole planet now.
And
so it's,
particularly what people are doing right now. For example, you're a lawyer. But you're also a galactic, universal matrix lawyer too, of the laws, of exopolitics, which is, really quantum and beautiful.
Yeah, thanks. That's actually been pursued by several of us. Of course, Peter Gersten of the New York and Arizona bars was involved with working on the subject of UFO secrecy. And of course, my friend Alfred Lambermont Weber is another attorney who is a major figure in exopolitics and the disclosure movement. So I think this is a new paradigm that I'm pursuing that a few other people have been pathfinders on, but that will become more commonplace for lawyers, because lawyers are basically, they're either social architects of some kind or they're social problem solvers. And we have to do both in this area. We have to resolve some lingering problems in our political culture that have resulted from secrecy, but then we also have to go about architecting the future. And that's something I think that lawyers should be involved in, because lawyers know how to craft the social patterns into protocols.
Well, I just actually used a lawyer as an example for everybody who has their 9-to-5 jobs. And they just think, oh, I'm just this, I'm just doing that, but they don't understand if they quantified it, then they would find a deeper understanding for themselves and their passion and what they're here to do. It's just when they think in 3D linear terms, it becomes very depressing.
Right, and as somebody like yourself, of the next generation, and being a crystal child and everything, and being as perceptive and intuitive and as intelligent as you are, you can see that. For example, I won't say who it was, but somebody in the exopolitical journalism community told me that she thought I was grandstanding by making my revelation about Mars and the way I was doing it. But I told her, look, I'm just standing for something. If you call publishing papers on a website on the internet, where occasionally I publish my own photograph so people know who wrote it, or I interview myself, or I'm interviewed by you on the internet, or I give a lecture every once in a while, if that's grandstanding, then more people need to grandstand, because all I'm doing is standing for something. I'm trying to tell the story of what happened in Project Pegasus and how the U.S. government developed quantum access capabilities back in the early 1970s, and I'm trying to roll out the information that gives us new perspectives on what's going on Mars. It's an inhabited planet, and that we already have had U.S. personnel up there. But beyond that, I'm not trying to solve all the problems in the world, and I'm not elevating myself to stand in my own truth and reveal what I know. And to do that, you need to stand for something. You need to be a somebody. You need to say, I'm proud of who I am. This is who I am. Here are my credentials. Here are my past accomplishments. Here's the information I have to share today. I hope that you can derive something from it. But I certainly haven't, for example, been claiming to be the only person who's discovered anything significant about Mars. I mean, humans have been speculating that Mars is inhabited since the days of Percival Lowell, who studied Schiaparelli's Canali on Mars and had read Flammarion's book, The Planet Mars, and actually built the Lowell Observatory in Flagstaff, Arizona, because he wanted to prove that Mars was inhabited. So the tradition within natural history to purport that Mars is inhabited and that certain data establishes it, that's been going on since the 1880s. And we wouldn't have a Lowell Observatory if that was not Percival Lowell's passion. And in fact, I might add that as a result of Percival Lowell being inspired to build the Lowell Observatory to prove that the canali on Mars that Schiaparelli had accidentally discovered were in fact artificial waterways, that led to the discovery by a young astronomer named Clyde Tombaugh at the Lowell Observatory of the planet Pluto, which was named Pluto with the first and second words or letters being PL in honor of Percival Lowell. So if Percival Lowell hadn't been obsessed by the notion that Mars is inhabited, we would not have discovered one of the planets in our solar system. Now we have the luxury of better imaging from both above the surface of Mars and now from on the surface of Mars. And a lawyer from Washington State can announce 100 years after Percival